Paul Rasmussen. I'm a senior minister at Highland Park United Methodist Church, and we run the program called Spotlight Theater. Starts in August. They rehearse, practice, script, costume, develop their own original musical. Runs all the way up to February where the big performance is, and we just knew by seeing this run every 13 years we've been doing it now, there's so many stories that come out of that span between August and February. There's so much real life drama, there's joy, there's victory, there's loss, there's grief, there's celebration. We knew we had a story to tell, so we tried to reach out to some filmmakers and said, look, we don't know how to make movies, but we've got a great story. Can you help us? And Thaddeus put together a great film.
How did this ministry start?
About 13 years ago, I had a lady walk in my office. She had just come back from Fort Wayne, Indiana. She had seen her nephew in a tiny community production for kiddos with special needs or disabilities, and she said, look, I think this is something that our church could probably pull off. At the time, we had a ministry just for families with disabilities, and we said, yeah, we could do that. So we had our director, and we put together this theater program, had no idea where it would go. The one in Fort Wayne was recreating Broadway musicals. Our director said, we're not going to do Broadway, we're going to do our own. We're going to create content, and we're going to find out what story these kiddos with disabilities want to tell. And so away we go, and over the course of 13 years, we just began to witness so many phenomenal stories surface. We just thought, we've got to somehow package this up and let other people know about what happens when you do something like this.
Tell me about the importance of having ministry that geared towards people with disabilities, because a lot of churches don't. So tell me a little bit about your program and how important it is for churches big and small to have ministries catering to your congregants with disabilities.
We learned a long time ago that it's very difficult for families with kids, infants, children, or even young adults with disabilities to find a church. And we ask this question all the time: is there anybody out there that needs a church the most but has access to one the least? And access is complex. It's not just a wheelchair ramp. It could be resources, it could be culture, and it was really problematic and difficult for families with disabilities to find a place for community. You think about the intimidation factor of walking into one single worship service with someone in a wheelchair who may speak out or make some guttural noises that no one's comfortable with, and we begin to break those down by having a ministry tailored just for families with disabilities. So in response to that question, we thought, how can we create an environment where anybody with disabilities can come and feel good? And what we love about our program is you don't have to be a member of the church. In our case, it's not about growing church membership or inviting new members. It's about giving back to the community and just creating environments free of charge. There's never a charge. Here's a place where you can come 7 days a week and find meaningful programs and meaningful fellowship.
Talk to me about your church, because what's so uniquely about your church here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is you give back regardless. Like when Temple Manuel down the street needs help, you're there. When the mosque in Irving needs help, you're there. So talk to us about how unique your congregation is and how special it is.
As a pastor, I'd love to take credit for it, but I'm standing on the shoulders of 100 years of ministry that has been oriented first and foremost towards mission and outreach, towards serving the community where folks need it the least. That's not something I brought to the table. That's a mantle that I just inherited about 10 years ago. So we are wired as a church to serve here and abroad, just to give back as much as we can. And so that's our goal, whether it's putting a roof over someone's head, whether it's feeding someone, clothing someone, educating someone. We really think the best of being a church is not about just conversion or filling up pews for worship. It's about serving the least of these in ways where they might not be able to serve themselves. And that is the ethos of our church.
Switching to the gear to film, when people think about Christian films, they think about hokiness and everything. But Lionsgate released Jesus music documentary by the Irwin brothers. They just had that feature film dealing with Greg Laurie and Pastor Chuck Smith at Calvary. So how important is it for Hollywood to get those stories right? And talk to me about the importance of maybe help someone seeing those films and coming to your church and discovering themselves.
I'm not a filmmaker, and so I don't want to begin to critique the nature of faith-based films, but I will tell you, I myself, as a pastor, as a lifelong pastor, am usually highly uncomfortable in faith-based films. I don't know why that is, and I don't think it's that they don't get the story right. It just doesn't feel right, and they don't feel real. So often they feel contrived or scripted or canned or kind of plastic, and what we wanted to do with this was capture the realness, the rawness, good, bad, or indifferent, and we turned it loose, became very transparent and vulnerable to the filmmakers, and said, look, you have full access to everything that happens while you're here. Capture it, and if it moves the story forward, go with it. I don't know why faith-based films in general are not very well received. A lot of them, I think they come with an agenda. We want you to watch this and feel a certain way or react a certain way, rather than just present the story at hand. And so we didn't have an angle here other than we'd like people to see this film and think we might could do that at our church. We might could create a similar program at our nonprofit or our community event. That was our goal, and that's probably a little nuanced difference about why we made the film. It wasn't necessarily to spread a message about faith. It was to show what a faith-based environment that is truly welcoming looks like in all of its raw realness.
Lastly, how can we follow your ministry and support, and how can our viewers at home support your ministry?
Yeah, hpumc.org. I guess all roads intersect sometime these days with a website. That's where we are, Highland Park United Methodist Church, hpumc.org. Log on, tune in. Always welcome to join us for whatever. And if you know someone who has children, young adults, or adults with disabilities that is struggling to find a community of faith, we've got one. And there's no charge, there's no free, and you don't have to be a member of our church. It truly is free without any expectation coming back. So you can let people know. You can let people know that we're at 3300 Mockingbird 7 days a week, and we'll be ready to receive them.